Jeff Thompson joins us this morning to have a flick through this morning's newspapers, and a regular guest here on the Breakfast Show couch. He's been away for some time. It's nice to have you back, sir.
Good morning.
And, well, what a day for front page headlines. This almost sounds as though like a film. Slave in a cellar for 24 years.
I mean, you couldn't dream this one up, could you? It's a shocking story. I woke up, as you know, very early this morning before I came in here. But this story seems to have gripped the world's media and is certainly going to ask some questions of society and communities, no matter where you live. It just amazes me that, you know, we're at a time we're asking parents to take responsibility for their kids. We ask communities to help bring up our young. You've got a situation here that over 25 years, something this amazing and this horrific could have taken place. I think it asks questions of all of society.
Absolutely. Let's just set the scene as much as we can do. Elizabeth Fritzl was held captive for 24 years in a cellar. Now, it's alleged by her father. He's been arrested for it, for holding his daughter in captivity and incest, because she's had 7 children whilst being held in captivity. One of which has been pictured and across many of the papers today is Lisa, who's age of 15. Now, interestingly, how the police found out that this girl was this lady now 42.
What happened was her oldest child, 19, was taken to hospital. She was poorly, and the doctors found in her pocket a note from the mum, Elizabeth, asking for help. So it was investigated. They found that she was actually in the basement with an electric code that you could only get in, and she'd been there for 24 years, as you say.
What's even more amazing is the mother claims no knowledge, and I'm sorry that there's a lot more to this, and I think over the forthcoming days and weeks, I think we'll start to see more revealed, and I think quite an incredible story that will certainly dominate, I think, the media's time, but I think society's hearts and minds, because we really have got to start looking at how communities can, you know, this sort of inter-neighbour, community interdependency, we talk about community cohesion. Yeah. And I think in a global community, we've got to start looking, obviously what's happened here, tragically, but start looking for the lessons.
It's certainly not our place to start pointing fingers, but as you mentioned there about the mother not being aware or suggesting she wasn't aware of this taking place, then you're talking about communities. How would you not know that this is going on next door to you? This is what's happening. There are certain kind of similarities, I suppose, with the beginning of this story, as you mentioned, perhaps unfolding, of Fred and Rosemary West. There seems to, that kind of, all of a sudden it starts to unravel, and all of a sudden this huge kind of, almost film plot comes out.
I mean, so much of life is reflecting, I think, a very sort of almost fourth world existence. I mean, it's so fast, everyone's moving at their own pace now, trying to achieve their own place in society. I think we sometimes forget what's going on right next to us. Relationships between neighbours, we talk about communities, they're all changing. Positively and thankfully, we're beginning to see a rebalancing of that trend, with some rather interesting planners, believe it or not, start looking at how communities, upon seeing new developments take place, start looking at relationships and people first, whereas the trend has always been to look at the buildings without looking at the people. And I think just establishing how relationships are developed and fostered, so we don't see tragic and quite incredible situations like this occur again.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's interesting what you said there about the neighbours living next door, because there's actually a quote in the Daily Mirror this morning from one of the guys who lived on the street, who said of Joseph, the father, he was just a good man that wanted to do good. So you can imagine the shock, and that you just couldn't get your head around it. You couldn't comprehend that this chap that you've lived on the same street for over 2 decades, nice guy, you say good morning to him as you see him on the street, and then this opens up. And as you say, over the next days and weeks, I imagine there's going to be even more horrible details that come out that we're not going to be able to get our heads around.
OK, we'll be looking at more newspapers after the break. Jeff, which other stories are you going to tease us with that we can talk about a little bit later?
Well, you know, sport's been my world for too many years, not for me to look at. I was in London, got back last night, and was rather interested to learn of what is now being billed as the Stamford Bridge Brawl. You know, some professional footballers warming down at a club where obviously a big result, having lost, had a big impact. We're now hearing stories that the brawl was actually sparked by a racial slur. So that would be my concern. you know, football is too much big business, but more importantly, too much of a big influence on society. At a time when the Premier League and the FA are looking at the respect agenda, not a government agenda, but this time sport doing its bit. But I'd be very concerned if a racial slur did take place, with Chelsea now being such a multiculturally important club, and at the same time seeing professional footballers caught up in, I think, scenes that don't exactly help the image of the game.
Thanks, Jeff. We're talking about that story and many more after the break with myself, Nikki and Claire Fallon. We'll see you shortly.